Welcome back again to my YouTube channel. So in the previous video, we looked at the introduction to Bootstrap. Those who missed that video can just look up to the top there, and then you can click it to look at the introduction. But in today's video, we're going to look at the breakpoints in Bootstrap. Please, if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do well to subscribe, and then also like and comment below if you have challenges. All right, so let's look at breakpoint. So breakpoint is very important in Bootstrap. So from here you can see that it's called the customizable width, and that determines how responsive the layout is across different devices. Let me give you an explanation to this. For instance, if you look at this page in this web browser, if I reduce the size, what happens, right? You see that it immediately changes the layout. So when the screen size is this much, screen size is what you have here, what you see on my screen. So on this size, you see as I stretch the size, there is a gap here, right? And as I reduce it, the gap also reduces. And then you can also see there is a side menu here, right? So let's look at what happens to the side menu when the screen size reduces. So as the screen size keeps reducing, the side menu eventually disappears, and then it becomes something like this, right? Okay, and then the more you decrease it, even the font starts to also reduce. So eventually it becomes like you cannot go any further. It becomes like this. So this is what we call responsiveness of a page. So some sites are responsive whilst others are not responsive, and Bootstrap helps us make responsive websites by giving us what we call breakpoints. So breakpoint just describes the point at which the page breaks, right? I would explain that later on when we look at the various breakpoints that we have. And another explanation with breakpoints, let me inspect this page and then give you how it looks like. So this is a page, right? So you can just click right, and then go to inspect. Now when you go to inspect, for beginners, I know for advanced learners you might already be conversant with this function, but for beginners it would be interesting for you to check this one out. So at the top here where you have dimensions, right, that can tell you which size you can use for your layout. So for instance, over here it's an iPhone SE. So for an iPhone SE, this is how the page will appear, right? So you can see with the parts, this is going to appear on an iPhone. So if I want to test for responsiveness, I don't even have to get the device. I can just use my browser to test for the responsiveness. If I want to use an iPhone XR, right, this is how it's going to look like, all right, for the page. And then if I want to use an iPad, so let's say iPad mini, this is how the page is going to look like. So on this browser, which is just a personal computer, you're able to test for the responsiveness of a website on different devices. So using this, you need a breakpoint. Now let's look at the default breakpoint. So for breakpoint, we have none, right? None, which is a very extra small. We have the small, and then medium, large, and extra large. Let's go to the HTML page and then elaborate this point. So let me elaborate using, first I will use the I'll start from the top. So I'll start from very large, and then to none. All right, so let's create a simple page. So let's start. So let's create a folder, and then this time I will name the folder learning breaks, right? So you could give it any name. Then you go to this folder, and then you run your cmd, and then you can just open your code editor from this side. You could go through the traditional way of starting with the file, navigate. So you could go to file, new file, and then you can just start. or you could go to, you could create an empty folder, and then we'll go to open folder and then look for this location, and then you can just start. All right, so over here, let's start with a simple HTML file. So let me create an index.html file here, index.html file here, and in my index.html file, let me get, like I told you in the first video, if you haven't watched the first video, you can make a reference. I would just want to become very lazy. Just go to my introduction here and then get the template. So this is a template with the Bootstrap, CSS, and JavaScript extensions. So you can just do a copy and then you can just paste it here. So when you run this, right, what happens? You just see the introduction to Bootstrap, right? So Bootstrap demo, hello world, right? Okay, now I don't need this hello world stuff here. I just want to show you responsiveness. So if you don't want to use the template here, you could decide not to use this one. So you could just use the boilerplate. So there is Mnet abbreviation. So you just use Shift and then 1. It gives you exclamation. Then you click enter. Now you have the boilerplate again. But remember that this is not Bootstrap. So you have to add Bootstrap to it by adding the script. I spoke about that in the first video. All right, so let's just use the template you have here. I just copied this and pasted it here. So to explain breakpoints to you, I would use a container, and I know we haven't done containers yet. So even if you don't understand this, it's okay. You can just watch as I do it, and then later on when we start with containers, you're going to understand. So first I created a container where I'm going to put just some variables inside, and then I decided to create a role. So let me have a role here, and then inside the role I would like to have some columns, right? Maybe about 6 columns. So let's create a column, and the column should also have some borders. Let's create a column first. So first let me create a column. How many columns would I like to create? Let's create about 6 columns, right? So 6 columns, right? Created. And let me call this column, let me call it column 1. So if I have this as column 1, let me name the other ones too. So I know this would be column 1, right? So I could just go this way, 1, and then I have 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6. So whilst I work this out, let's see how it looks like. Let me make this page more visible. So this is like English language. So I just created a container, something to just have everything inside. And then I created a row. So this is a row with several columns. Now to explain bricks to you, let me implement the borders. So let me add borders to this. So because it's just a normal class, let me just create something here for you to see. So because I'll be utilizing the same class on all the columns, I don't want to type them one after the other. So I like to do it all together. So you could have a border, right? So let's see what happens when you have a border. So when you have a border, you can see that borders have been assigned to all the columns, right? And then I also like to have a margin of 2. So if I use a margin of 2, what happens is that the space between each column, right, is separated by 2. So you have 2 here, you have 2 there, you have 2 here, you have 2 here, right? 2 here, 2 there, 2 there. Okay. Now let me also give it a padding of, let's say, 5. So the individual items. So you see the pattern, because the text here is column, right? So the pattern of 5, what it does is that it gives you like 5 pixel space between the text inside and then the borders, right? So the space between this is 5. If you want to see this properly, let me go back again to the inspection. So when you go to the inspection, then you go to layout, right? it's you see the layout is it's giving you. All right, so this is just automatic. Let me just show you for maybe I should just 100%, and then let me just use something bigger. I don't really need this one. All right, so something bigger. So you see all the 5 are appearing, right? So all the 6 columns are appearing, and you can see the borderline between them. So let's continue, and because this is not the main part of the tutorial. The tutorial is for me to just show you the various breakpoints. So to elaborate the various breakpoints, let's add a background. So let me add a background to this. So to add a background, you just say bg primary, right? So this is a primary background, which is just yellow, right? I could take the background away just to make it more simple. And now I want us to implement the breakpoint. Now the first breakpoint you have here, which I said I'll tackle, right? Let's go back to the breakpoints to layout. So you can see there are containers to which we will do later. Containers, create columns. I'm going to teach you all that. So first, let's look at the extra large. So to use the breakpoint, you usually use the breakpoint on the columns, right? So I want to use the breakpoint for extra large. So extra large, let me first do it, and then we can just make it XXL, and then see. Let's see how this page behaves. So you see what this is trying to say is that when you use a breakpoint which is extra large, what it means is that when the size of the screen, right, is 1400 pixels or more, right, then it's going to implement what you have here. The normal implementation of this is just a normal page with 6 columns. So it will only implement this when the page is 1400 or more. So if it is less than 1400 pixels, then the page would break. That is literal. It's just going to break. That means that it's going to just give each row to each column, right? So it's going to break from your normal intention. Your intention is just to have just one row, but if it is less than 1400, then it's going to break from this row, and it's going to create its own rows, right? So it's not something you planned, but because you have made the settings that XXL, which is extra large, it means that when the page is small, right, it's just going to break to fill the pages. So let's see. So you can see that because it is XSL, it's broken from the normal behavior we expect. We expected to see 6 columns, but the page here is small. Now let's increase the size of the page and see what happens. Boom. So this size is more than 1400. So it just displays the normal behavior of our page. So the breakpoint is when the size reduces and it gets to the breakpoint level that we have set it, then it should break and form rows on its own. So you see, it just creates rows, and then that's it. For the rest, it just gives you rows, 1 row for each column. Okay, so let's see the behavior for this breakpoint when we have other sizes. So let's give it another one. This is for extra large. The other one is this is for extra large. So let's do extra large. So let's see, it's the same idea. So breakpoints are very important when you want to create responsive websites. So you see, for extra large, what happens is it gives you a little bit of room. So even at this point, it's still not broken because the size is smaller, right? It's 1200. So at least if the device is up to 1200, then it's not going to break. But if it's less than 1200, then it breaks and then creates just 1 row for each column. Okay, now let me skip the rest and go to small, right? So small. So let's go to small. I think you get the concept. If you don't get it, you could ask questions. I know a lot of people just skip the breakpoints, and then they just allow the website to just work on its own. But that is not a good practice. You should include breakpoints in your website. That is to, so sometimes when you use some other websites, because they haven't implemented breakpoints, they just restrict the length or the width, right? So you are not able to have that flexibility when you change devices. But breakpoints are important, especially when you have to view the website on your phone or on other devices. So this is small. Let's see what happens when you use small. So for small, you can see that the device is big, so it gives you the normal behavior. It keeps reducing, and it's still the normal behavior of the graph. So when you see that it's getting closer to our intended value, right? That is our intended size, which is small, and small size is what, 1576. So above this, then the normal behavior of the site is implemented. But when it becomes very small, then you see, when it is small, then now it breaks and then gives you one row for each column. So that is for small. Okay, and then very small. So extra small is when you have nothing. So you don't implement any. If you don't implement any of the breakpoint, then you have extra small. So with extra small, what happens? It means that just the last point. So the last point when the page is very small, then that is where you have the break, right? Okay, so this is what we have for breaks, and the documentation has set it all here. So they have different screen sizes, and then Bootstrap makes this very easy. But let's say you are not using the Bootstrap, right, and you want to implement responsiveness, and it means that you have to type it manually. So you have to create a CSS file, and then you have to indicate that when media is at blah 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 blah, and then you have to include the behavior of the page when the media sizes. For each media size, you have to indicate the behavior of the page. But for Bootstrap, you don't have to go through all this, because this thing has been done for you at the background, right? So it has been done for you in the background. You just have to call that package here in the CSS, and then by implementing your values by just adding ms or md or ll lg, you just have the responsiveness of your websites. Okay, if you have questions about responsiveness or breakpoints, you can do well to ask, and then in the subsequent video we're going to move on to more interesting ones, and the next video will be about containers. I implemented a container here, but I haven't done so much in them. I haven't done a lot about it, so we'll look at containers and see some interesting questions that people have about containers. Thank you so much for watching my video. If you haven't subscribed, please do well to subscribe and then like. I'll be continuing with this series, and I'll try my best to make it more interesting and short. Thank you so much. See you. Bye.